call this meeting to order. It is 2:35 p.m. on Thursday, August 9th. This is the Technical Advisory Committee meeting for AMATS. And first thing or anything, we're going to start roll call. Mr. Rebozo.
Present.
Mr. Morris.
Here.
Mr. Reader. Here. Mr. Martin.
Here.
Ms. Epstein is not with us. Mr. Hanson is not here, but should be here. Ms. Whip. Here. Mr. Rose here. Ms. Out. Here. Mr. Miller.
Here.
We do have quorum. Craig, would you mind making the public involvement announcement?
I would make that announcement. All of the AMATS meetings are public meetings. The public is invited to comment on every business item and also the information on it. If we have a presentation by staff or the consultants, the committee will then be given an opportunity to comment on it, and then the public will have an opportunity to comment.
Thank you. All right. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howe, second by Mr. Morris. Are there any opposed to approving the agenda? Hearing none. The agenda is approved as is. No right on. Hey, we have some minutes. Want to go through individually? Yeah. All right. So we'll start with the February 10th, 2011 minutes. Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Moved by Ms. Howe, second by Mr. Morris. Do you have any opposed? All right, hearing none, we're so moved. February 23rd, moves on to May 19th.
Oh.
Approved? Somebody else want to move? No. Move to approve.
I'll second.
Moved by Ms. Witt, second by Mr. Morris. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, so moved.
This is all before my time.
On to March 8th, 2012. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howell, second by Mr. Weber. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, we're to move. Madam Chair?
I have a question for staff.
Yes, Ms. Witt.
Craig, does this tie up, are these the last of the ones from 2011 that we need to approve?
I believe so.
Okay,
Double check.
and is there a schedule for getting this caught up?
We have minutes in three little phases. One is like 3 or 4 of them that need to be edited by me. The second is a bunch of them that, not a bunch of them, but a number of them that have gone to Bart. I don't know that I've gotten all of those back, but
I only have two.
you have 2. Okay, so there's 2 of them left.
And those are policy committee ones.
Right, and then the last is the section that came back, but after the, we didn't get to them after the 1-week time frame to get them posted. So those will be on the next agenda. I just don't remember how many are in each category, but the
Okay,
majority
because
are
I
in the last
understand,
category.
Bart, that these are the last of the ones that we have given back to you guys, that we, and we only have 2 policy
2 policies,
committee.
yeah, so we're,
Okay, I didn't bring the calendar this time, but we're still behind like 11 or 13 sets of minutes or something.
yeah, I think the combination of what he has sent back and then the few that have to edit, get that up, so we might have a bunch of them on the next.
Thank you.
All right. On to our business items. Item 5A was tabled from last month.
Yep, we had it before us last time.
Yes. So we have the time to review it, hopefully.
No real presentation, just you had it before you last time, and there was a sense of discussion, and I think 2 of you were gonna get together and 8 ounces of lunch and maybe 15 ounces of lunch. I don't know what happened.
I'm ready.
Okay.
You want a motion to start?
Sure.
Move to approve, move to recommend approval of the Title VI non-discrimination plan to the AMATS Policy Committee.
Second.
All right, that's the second by Mr. Rocco. Discussion from the board?
Yeah, I do. I appreciate the liberty to be able to look at it for an extra time, and I was pleased to see that what I did is I went back and I looked at our Title VI, because we also do Title VI in transit, and some of the recommendations that they wanted from us in our update of our Title VI plan. And that included the stuff that you didn't include in here, which is the graphics of where the low income and minority populations are. And I think that's a good addition. The other thing I didn't see in here, but I don't think it's critical to add, but was recognized when we saw our Title VI, there were two things in particular. They wanted, as we continue to do Title VI requirements in our transit planning efforts and providing transit service, when we do LEP services or provide services to reach out to low-income minority individuals, they wanted us to return back to them some assessment of the benefit cost to that. I mean, we put a lot of money and effort into it, but what do we get in return? Not that we wouldn't do it, but I think as we implement this plan, you should just keep that in mind, Craig, as the coordinator. So that was one thing. And then the second thing is that for all, they did in our review a statement about the AMATS process, and that was when we do a STIP and a TIP and a plan, not so much a STIP, but when we consider those things, I can share this language with you, but demonstrate the analysis of the needs of low-income minority population. So whatever we do to demonstrate that need, whether it's through the ranking criteria or evaluate it that way, just reflect that when you're doing your reporting on how you're meeting the Title VI requirements, because they're very interested in the benefit you're receiving with the effort that you're putting out. If you're not putting any effort out, and you're not getting anything, that's one thing, but if you're spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to reach out and you're not getting any return, just keep track of how to do that. So anyway, I think it's a good plan, and I encourage the committee to support approving and send it to the policy committee. So thanks.
Let the record show Mr. Hanson is ready to support on. All right. So we had a motion, it was seconded. Is there any more discussion? Mr. Hanson?
We're on the discrimination.
Yes.
The only, I mean, I guess, I was looking at the discrimination complaint procedures that says that they're to be translated in Spanish, Tagalog, and Korean only. Those are the top three. Is there a reason why, or is there any other close, or should there be more? I'm just asking the question.
Well, there's, through the chair, Mr. Hanson, there's a standard for that, and it is 5% or 1,000 people in a certain category of a certain language, whichever is less.
Okay.
And so these were the three that float to the top using that criteria.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Are there any questions or comments on this from the public? No? All right, it's back with us. We have a motion in front of us, then moved, seconded. Are there any opposed to forwarding this to the policy committee? Hearing none, we are so moved. Is there any other business at this time? No other business? All right, so we're going on to our informational reports. Implementation status of adopted AMATS plans.
This is, grows out of our public involvement plan. And so August of every year is when we're supposed to report on this. And the only real information I have to report is that of the three main adopted plans that we have that I guess should be implemented, which would be the MTP, the pedestrian plan, and the bicycle plan. Obviously, we're implementing our MTP right now through our TIP. You guys are fairly aware of that and our status of the projects and obligation, all that sort of stuff through our obligation report. But the pedestrian and bike plan have projects in the TIP that are specifically called implementation of those two plans. And so there's a relatively small amount of funding in there, but we are working on those. Not sure of the exact projects that are being done because Lori was out of touch. Lori Canke, who helps coordinate both of those, touch with me to get the information. But I know they're working on one right now down on Lake Otis, which is adding some pedestrian facilities on the east side there. So that's another part of what those two plans were concentrating on, the missing links, little connection there. So
Actually, two parts. We were reconstructing the driveway and separating the pathway on the east side, and we're constructing a missing segment on the website.
Okay.
So, different.
Other than that, don't really have anything to report on that.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Ms. White?
I think at the last meeting, folks had asked for a status update from staff on the status of municipal projects as well as what was the
You're right. It was my responsibility, I blew it.
Let the record show.
The record shows that I blew it. I will try and get something for next time. Sorry to go right.
Well, and that would be the advantage of getting our minutes up to date too, because then we could be reminded of those things.
I'm Norwegian, I'm not too bright. so.
That's okay.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from the public? Any questions? No? All right. Are there any other committee comments at this time?
So I was mentioning to Craig that since our last meeting, Transit's been notified that we won 2 more grants through a nomination process. So we have to add those into the TIP. One for Winter City bus stop improvements. I can't remember the amount.
20.
What is it? 280. And then 1.3 or 1.4 million for fleet replacement. So, yeah, no, I just get the glory. Jamie does all the writing. She's on a roll. So we'll need to make a TIP amendment at some point to add those in. It's not a rush, but we'll need to get them in before we can expend them.
And, Madam Chair, Lance, what would you think of something that would really help to get these kinds of things added into the TIP as a administrative modifications, if we had a policy for some clarification on this committee? If it's something that is outside of the fiscal constraints of the TIP, that we allow ourselves to add it to the TIP as a administrative modification as opposed to a major amendment. The difference being, you know, 2-week notification and adoption versus a 6-month process. And so if the committee concurs, maybe we have staff to draft a new P&P equipment that just specifies that, because otherwise if we go just by Title 23, it makes it clear that any new project must be, and in this case, it's absolutely crazy when it's operational assistance, really, or fleet replacement on a nationwide competitive basis, and unless.
Well, we already have the P&P, just probably have to either clarify or add another bullet.
No, that could be.
Because we already have one that says how the TIP's gonna be amended and laid out and everything. It's just like you said, make a slight amendment to an existing policy.
That would be good.
I would support that. I think when we get the opportunity, if anybody gets an opportunity to receive these funds, or even, if we have to wait to go through that process, we lose construction seasons, we lose bidding opportunities. So
And
that's a
it's
great
rolled out
idea.
the
If we have the
intent.
ability to do it, I would definitely support it.
That sound?
I would love it.
Yeah. We're making it
The
clear.
language used to be, if you could add a new project in with a minor amendment, which is the shortened process, as long as it didn't affect the conformity. And so, obviously, these 2 projects, you can probably argue fairly easily that they don't affect the conformity, but with the new language, it's very clear. You add any project, it has to go through a major amendment process, which,
And
as
it
long
makes
as it's
sense.
outside the financial
Yeah.
constraints of the TIP, it shouldn't be.
Both, you still use that wording, but and add the people, I think.
Yeah.
So the new language will say both that obviously it can't affect conformity, and that if it's outside the fiscal constraints of the adopted plan, we should do a combination.
Not like a nationwide discretionary. Yeah, we'll coordinate with FHWA2 on the draft language.
Thank you, Lincoln. That's a good idea.
You all have-
I have actually, yeah. Questions, comments. Just asking about the status of the development of the new policies and procedures
haven't finalized it.
Well, maybe you should just have a work session and get started on it, and that work session can lay out a plan and timelines and some kind of development schedule, so we can, you know, it doesn't mean tomorrow, but we just need to keep moving on it before we all forget about everything we did. And the other thing is, should we bring it up, Steve, about the LMP and that process?
I guess I still see her as policy, so I'm still in the dark about what the.
Well,
issue
no,
is.
I'm talking about the public process for.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, bring that up.
Okay, well, Steve and I are working on a limited maintenance plan for carbon monoxide, and we still have some technical issues to work out. Ultimately, what it would mean is we wouldn't have to do conformity anymore for our plan, so long-term, it's a huge thing for us, for everybody here. Hopefully, we'll be able to start that public process here within the next month or so. During the last air quality conformity, when it went to the Citizen Air Quality Advisory Committee, one of the members requested that they get to see a draft prior to going out to public comment. My concern is that may set a precedent for how all the committee information is worked through on any document, and that I think that the technical advisory committee should review and think about their processes, and, I mean, I don't have a problem with changing them or meeting things, I just don't think we should set up an expectation that isn't consistent across the board with all the committees or documents that we develop, that people think that if they're on the committee, they get to see preview drafts before they went to public comment, when they're functioning as a group to provide public comment. So it's kind of, why would they go through and get a pre-public comment draft? It just seems counterproductive, and it draws out the whole process longer, because now you're having to do pre-meetings, and then, you know, and when do they come to the TAC to agree or disagree with that kind of stuff? So, I thought we wanted to have an item to discuss and talk about, you know, process on how we handle these kind of requests before we actually get started in this process, kicking off another public involvement process. Does that make sense? Okay. So, I have some reservations about it, just like for public admin discussion. So I'm not sure if the best thing to do would be just to put it on the agenda, talk about, you know, looking at the public involvement process, plan, and how we process documents and how we utilize our committees, at what level. I can see a committee who's the actual developers of a plan or something would have pre-documents, pre-review, pre-release documents, because they're actually the authors or the ones who are developing it. But when we go through an interagency consultation and we're going to federal governments and we're developing through the conformity requirements, we have the pre-public awareness draft that the feds get to review. Once we've gotten their comments, then we develop the public draft. At that point, that should be released to the public. I'm not sure why we would need to go to another committee to look at before that is then released to the public. So I think there's differences in these types of approaches that are different for each, but I think we should talk about it now before we actually have a document in front of us. Food for thought.
So is there an action item that we need to?
I would think we would,
As part
or if you
of our-
guys agree that we should talk about it, then we need an action item for the next meeting to talk about it. So, I think everything's fine.
Even better, you have to have a recommendation. If you're looking at either policies and procedures, so it's here as part of that, or that's something that needs to be addressed as part of our review of our public participation plan. Either way, that it, even if it's just an operational policy for ourselves.
I think so. I think it's gonna come up, if not just on this one, on any of them.
Madam Chair, Craig, as you're looking at the P and Ps, we keep an eye to this issue and see if there's a place where it makes sense to plug it in, maybe, as part of our listening things.
Or clarification, I mean, does anybody else have any comments on that?
I think when we go through a public process seeking comments prior to developing a draft, we create that information. And then we create a draft, we ask staff to respond to the public comments, we weigh whether they did or they didn't. And then we approve the draft from a technical perspective and process perspective, that it's sound enough to release for public review and comment. I know that we have also had conversations that when we are going through the planning and zoning in the assembly and they provide comments, we do not re-edit and reproduce another document, because it's another document on the street, and they don't know if that's the committee draft, the pre-public review draft, the public review draft. So I think we should keep it simple for their benefit, unless you're dealing with a board. If you're dealing with the Freight Advisory Committee or the Transit Advisory Committee, maybe you seek them some parts of maybe something there, but it doesn't. I'm like Cindy, I'm open to looking at it, but I'm afraid that we'll get so many versions out, and it's complicated and timely enough right now for us and for the public. It seems to be less of streamlining. But I do agree with Jennifer, we should take a look at it, maybe it's working somewhere.
Well, because the key issue is, when do you have our own advisory committees review it? Is it the public review draft, which is how,
We have done it.
yes.
But we have one coming up. Hopefully, if we can get these last few technical issues, it's to our benefit to get this done sooner rather than later. I mean, there's no requirement, but it just makes life easier if we have a maintenance plan. Because you don't have to do all the conformity stuff. So it's coming up, and I would much rather deal with the issue now without the pressure of having it there and having to make decisions.
Well, it sounded like we were thinking of kind of two different minds. One is, let's look at the P and D and see if there's something we can tweak in there that will, solve that issue. And Bart and I can do that easily enough. And then if we look at it and we decide, it really needs to be an amendment of the public involvement plan, well, that's a different story. I mean, we know that there are some things that need to be modified in that, and that's one of the main things. Or need to be looked at, I shouldn't say modified, but looked at it. So, but we can look at the P and see if there's any room for.
Well, is that the appropriate vehicle to use? Is that, my concern is I just don't want us to treat different committees differently and documents and how we process, and set up different expectations. That, I just want to be consistent, and this is something that's different, and they're asking questions, and as requested is, but is this the best interest for AMATS and for the other committees on how we process our public involvement? Are we setting ourselves up to further extend our public involvement time process? What is the air quality?
Just so that I understand,
Yeah.
we're asking staff to take a look at our PPs to see if there's something we're going to put in there to make it very clear that our advisory committees receive the public review draft of AMATS documents.
If that's what we
for
want to
review
do.
and comment.
If that's how we want to do it. I mean, I just bring up the issue because I don't want to outright tell this person, hey, no, because we haven't had a chance to discuss it. I mean, maybe they've got a point. Maybe we should be letting our pre-public notice drafts go through the committees to comment on. It just seems like you don't just assume that you do it without discussing it as a process and the ramifications on other committees. Because another committee may say, no, we don't want to do that, or they have a different expectation. We should be consistent in how we apply our processes, and if we're going to release documents pre-comment to committees to work on, then we better think of ramifications of whether that's something we want to do across the board, to be even and consistent.
How about this? thought if we asked staff to take a look at it
The whole issue.
and come back with a recommendation
There you go.
on how to proceed, either to actually take action on or to proceed. How's that?
That's all. I just wanted, I don't want to make it a problem. I just know it's coming and I think some thought needs to be put into it.
Any questions? Oh, sorry, Ms. Epstein?
Yeah, I'm fine with the issue being looked at, but if staff's gonna look at it, I would encourage some dialogue with the committee members too, because I think one thing that the committees, at least the one I've been on, suffers from is that people wanna feel they're playing a meaningful role if they're taking their time to participate in meetings and you know, we have to figure out how to best address that, if we're gonna get good people with expertise on committees.
Well, I mean, if staff's gonna look at it, review the policy and procedure, and come up with a recommendation, it's gonna have to be presented and discussed with the committee.
Yeah, no, I'm just encouraging staff to talk to committee members too, or maybe a cross-section or something, or I'm happy to at least be part of that.
I know, I was gonna just, are there any other questions or comments from the committee?
On that one, or?
Yeah, I can say, because it looked like there was a question from the audience.
It was a comment from Todd Logan, and I certainly agree with Mr. Wilbur that the idea of getting multiple public documents out there fatigues staff and the public and everybody else. What surprised me, I have been at least one other meeting where this topic's been discussed, is that you would have specialist subcommittees not weighing in until the general public process. That just seems backward to me. If you've got subcommittees of specialists, they ought to be weighing in so what you give the public has already gotten that full input. I think you have greater potential of some real shifting of gears when those specialists weigh in and the public feels a little blindsided. So strictly process comment, I was surprised when I think this committee earlier discussed the idea of waiting until the public comment period for your subcommittees to comment. That just seems rather late in the process, in my opinion.
Thank you. Sounds like it's something that they can. Discussion going through.
Just kind of a comment from the air quality committee perspective. I think sometimes, the air quality committee's been involved in some plans, for example, the IM issue. They had an opportunity to kind of review the whole issue and that kind of thing, as to the thing. But in a particular circumstance of air quality conformity, it's always a very time-constrained document. I think it was done 3 days before it was released. And oftentimes the MTP or TIP hinges on that document being released in a timely manner. And there just wasn't the opportunity to convene the Air Quality Committee prior to that, or even to talk about the process that went into putting that document together. But I think if a committee has a significant problem with a conformity document, for example, they can always come back and say, can we extend the public comment period 30 days to give us more opportunity to look at this? But it just seems like if we're at a position where we're required to go to a committee in order to, before we can even release it, that it's going to boggle, it's just going to create significant problems for us to operate as a TAC and as AMATS as a whole. We're going to miss deadlines, and it just, I think that document is something that's maybe unique to some of the other plans. In many cases, you want to get input as you go along, developing a pedestrian plan or a full-blown air quality plan. But the conformity document is very technical. It's kind of a cookbook almost approach to putting things together. It's more of a technical document than air quality plan per se. Yeah.
Mr. Hanson?
I was going to say, apologize, I forgot that, feel my CRS kicked in, I will make notes and send emails to the appropriate people to get the information together for the next time. I will say that we, right now, we have quite a few projects under construction that, I won't go into all the specific, some of the smaller ones, but some of the ones that more affect the general nature are, we've got the last phase of 9th Avenue between Cordova and Latouche under construction right now. If we go down that way, it's not that easy to get around. We have, we're in the section between, on Raspberry Road between Arctic and C Street, and in the intersection of C Street, we're, have a contractor starting up, we're just giving them notice to proceed to, that never was constructed to any standards, and they only had half a right of way. We are, a collector that has never been constructed. It's 32nd Avenue here, east of Muldoon, that's under construction right now. And also, we've got Abbott Road between Lake Otis and, I think it's Hartsel. We are going to be starting up to overlay here very shortly. It's going down the asphalt and overlay it. We just are finishing up making the connection of Independence Drive to O'Malley. I think they just finished the paving here this week. It's a right in, right out at this time. And
It'll be open within the next week.
we have quite a few other projects going on, or local roads, there's more in the area of rehabilitating the asphalt. It's doing some reclaiming jobs in each of the Senate districts. We've got $3 million this year from each of the Senate districts in the Anchorage Bowl area. We're picking roads that we just couldn't go in and reclaim the asphalt and reshape it, and more of a maintenance reduction effort. And it's kind of a lot of our program is to do that type of work for, unless we have to spend on maintenance, unless taxes we need. 40th Avenue over here is about ready to be opened up. That's a new road that between Lake Otis and Wellness Drive. We started constructing a couple of years ago. It's getting very close. We're in the landscaping phase of it to get that and finalized. And that'll be opened up. It'll probably, it's hopefully going to replace 42nd Avenue as a cut through for that area, which is what it was designed for. But old habits usually are hard to die. And we've got, after we've got that open for a while, then we are going to be looking at a traffic study for 42nd Avenue for in that area to see if improvements, traffic calming, whatever else. And then out in the Girdwood area, and this was federally funded, is some roads and park improvements in the downtown Girdwood. Burlat, Holmgren, it's actually being constructed by the state. We did the design on it, and so it's federally funded. They've got a good portion of that done. So, like I said, we've got a lot of other smaller projects going around. Those are probably the ones that are under construction right now that you may want to know something about. And I will have a bond package from last year, what we've got funded, and a legislative package next time.
Are there any other committee comments at this time?
Yeah, one, just, you know, now that we have a new transportation bill, it's probably gonna enter into our, and have an influence on our tip schedule and activities for developing a new tip. But, Craig, that's if we work on getting a schedule for, because right now our tip ends in 13. And so starting with a whole new process of evaluating our criteria and everything else to see if it aligns well with where the funding's going to be coming from and so it was good to get a schedule.
I haven't heard anything official from DOT to your headquarters on what kind of dollar figures they're expecting us.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
if you've heard anything like that, that'd be nice.
we have a range that we want to. I think it's taking us back to our safety rule levels.
It's pretty close to what we have in the 14, 15 hour years that's in now. Just a little bit more.
Anything else we go in the order from the
Okay,
committee?
just real quick.
I heard, I saw.
You're on the committee, you go first.
The only other thing I forgot to mention, we're in the process right now of developing the capital improvement plan and capital improvement budget, which process, and I think that where we developed a legislative request down to the legislature.
All right, very
Just a quick report. The AMATS Freight Advisory Committee has been busy this year touring different places, and I think we talked about the tour of the Whittier barge operations, which, I'm not sure if anyone a few minutes ago. That was an impressive tour, but recently we just had a tour of the commercial vehicle enforcement at the way station out on the Glen there. It was really impressive. We were supposed to just see a tour, an inspection of a vehicle that they were gonna bring in, a semi, and there happened to be an accident downtown with involving a semi, and so we happened to be there when they pulled that vehicle in and did the whole stem to stern inspection of it. We're fortunate to have one person doing the inspection and one person explaining what the inspection was, so just showing the way in motion, when they drive by and how they decide to stop them and all the connections, ITS-related connections that show us how those things work and how their capabilities out there. So Teresa, again, did a great job organizing that. And then, of course, since she's on half days right now, she wasn't able to go. So maybe she'll get to go again in the future. So we were very fortunate that People Mover lent us a share ride van to go out there. And so thanks again for that. That was really nice to do. We had a tour of the MV Amsterdam, the cruise ship in Holland, America. For that one, we had most of the people met us down on the docks because they don't have those quick cards. So there were three of us riding a motor coach down there. We kind of felt bad about it, but the share ride van might have been better.
Anytime.
But anyway, just keeping you up to date on what we were doing.
I know that there was a comment from the public.
Yeah, Todd Logan again, I had a question for Mr. Hanson on his report. You were talking about the repaving projects around town, and I've been enjoying the resurfacing of Birch between Abbott and O'Malley in the last week or so, and that's quite delightful. But at the same time, my question is the adjacent multi-use path was even in worse condition than the road and has not been touched. And what is now happening is cyclists used to pound down the rough multi-use path because the road was almost as bad. Well, now that the road's been redone, myself included, the cyclists are now getting out on the highway, getting off the multi-use path because it's in such poor condition compared to the road. Is there any opportunity when you're doing these resurfacing projects to look at the adjacent multi-use paths?
Well, a lot of times, which road was this?
This is Birch between O'Malley and Abbott.
He did some deferred maintenance.
Oh, okay. I can't answer that. Maybe.
That's actually a state route through there.
Okay, so that's not what I'm confusing projects then.
Let me tell you, the ownership of roads in this town is confusing to us, so I can sympathize with the public.
I at one point raised that as something you could look at, and there was some resistance, but I think there may be some ways of making some efficiencies.
Well,
We've been meeting to discuss it.
Yes.
It's, we've been meeting for months, and it's an ongoing discussion. It seems like it'd be simple, but it's.
Oh, I'm not saying it's simple, but that doesn't mean it should be done.
I even found one road where the muni owns the south half of the right of way and the state owns the north half. How it happened, I don't know, but
I know of one also.
But Ken, can you maybe answer?
Yes,
that?
yes. So that is a state route, and it's certainly recognized that the road is in not the best shape. Our maintenance crew did do abbreviated effort to try to restore some serviceability to that section. The challenge is funding, of course. Absent of general funds, what we have to work with to redo the roads is what's available in the TIP. And simply put, there are very few funds available in the TIP for roads which are not part of the major system. We know it's a problem. We're trying to find a way to route funds to that, and it would have to be state funds because AMATS simply doesn't have the budget for it. It's a challenge, and it's recognized.
They don't have the budget for multi-use paths, is that what you're saying?
I'm talking about Birch Road in general. I'm not going to be specific to the pedestrian facility.
Yeah,
I'm talking
but
about
was that
the
your
transportation corridor. Birch Road itself needs a fair amount more money.
Yeah, but I thought the question was, you know, if you're out there doing something.
If you would like to
anyway-
answer the question, have at it.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'm restating the question and asking a new one.
Thank you.
Is there a way to, if there's repaving going on, to also address the multi-use path in the same area?
There are a lot of needs and there are very few resources. Resources, well, again, are constrained. I'll just keep saying it.
And if I may add into that, the funding that was used for that was deferred maintenance, which was designated specifically for roads. And so for DOT, our maintenance crews to go out there and actually use those funds to maintain a pathway, it's not likely to happen. And it's beyond what is typically the scope of their deferred maintenance funds. And so in order for that pathway to get repaired, it would be best done as a, and I think this is what Ken was saying, it needs to be done as a line item, state appropriation. And it is something, if it's important to the municipality outside of the AMATS process, to have it on their CIP list, even though it's not their ownership.
And even if it would be cheaper to do it at that time than it would to do it separately. So if there would have to be some
Nobody's gonna argue that it
coordination.
is, it would be more efficient to do it that way, but it also takes different types of equipment to do a separated pathway. And plus, when we are doing just simple overlays, we need to be careful that we are working within the constraints of the existing roadway. I mean, I don't know when Birch Road was last surveyed, and does anybody know for sure that that pathway is even within the public right-of-way? And so there are challenges to just making assumptions of doing work on separated pathways that aren't, specifically addressed as part of a project.
That all makes sense, but it might also be useful to know when the state's doing something, and the municipality might at least make a conscious decision whether it wants to coordinate.
And there's a lot of issues, and a lot of times it gets back to, again, funding. Our maintenance people, I mean, Anchorage is, I'm not an advocate of this, I think it's not a good idea, but we have different service areas that we can spend money in. Some areas we can't spend money in. The Anchorage, which is Roads and Drainage Service Area, is the area, primarily the bowl area, where we have maintenance authority, and we can spend, the municipality can spend money because those taxpayers pay a certain mill levy for maintenance within that area. Outside of that, there's some areas that have what's called limited road service areas, some are what are called rural road service areas, where they levy themselves a certain amount that, and Birch Road would be a prime example. It's outside of a service area that I know, it's not within ARTSA, it's outside and it's on a state right of way, so we couldn't spend any money up there unless we got a specific grant for that type of work. Now, and getting back to kind of your question, if we have money that we are receiving to rehabilitate a road, especially a collector or above, that's one of the things that we look at is it deficient in pedestrian and facilities on either side, and what are the conditions are in, and usually we incorporate that funding, the money, we can use it to do some work on that portion of what's within the right of way. Maintenance dollars are usually limited to such things as patching potholes, rut repairs, and now it's primarily done to sweeping. We have to do 4 sweepings a year, so it's, you know, there's limited resources. And unless there's a safety issue, they usually don't, if they're gonna go repair a pothole, they don't look at, you know, once in a while, they do some strip paving, you know, for maintenance to extend it, but it all just depends on what it is. Is that?
No, I really appreciate all the comments. It clarified a lot of things. I just want to make sure people understood the unintended consequence of what happened on Birch. Is we got a lot of cyclists no longer using the multi-use path. They're now riding on the road. So.
That could be a safety issue.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Any final comments from the committee? Give everyone listening. All right, so the next meetings are, policy committee meets 2 weeks from today downtown, and then we have our scheduled meetings all the way through October shown here. Are there any other informational reports? No? Hearing none, we are through 21 p.m.